Hello everyone, let's review completing the square. This is a method that you do a little bit in Algebra 1. I like to see the pictures, so I'm going to try and coach you through the pictures before we get to kind of the algebra. This says this is x squared plus 8x using what we call the area model. Well, okay, why is it x squared plus 8x? What's the area of that guy? X times x is x squared. What's the area of this guy? 8 times x, 8x. Oh, okay, I get it. This is a rectangle. Okay, this is obviously not a square, the whole thing, but this is a square. See how it's x plus 4, x plus 4? Is it the same? X times x is x squared, 4x, 4, oh, there's 8x. Okay, we just split it up. But when we complete the square, you'll notice that this isn't a square unless we add something, and we have to figure out what we're going to add. It's 4 by 4, which is 16. Okay, I'm going to skip representing the other one in an area model and just say, what you're always going to do is take this 8 and cut it in half. And since that's the b value, you take half of b over 2 times b over 2. You multiply them times itself. That's what we're going to add. If you draw the picture, you don't think about the formula so much. But what I'm going to do is now go through a couple of these easy ones, and then we'll do some of the interesting ones. So this is an easy one. Here's how I do this. I always get a and b on one side, and then everything else on the other. And in the first two problems, it's 0, so we don't have to worry about it. This one we'll have to deal with. And what I'm going to do is take x squared plus 18 and rewrite it as a square. Half of 18 is 9, so you always take half of b. That needs an x. X plus 9. Now, the first question is, what would the area of that square be? And since it's 9 by 9, it would be 81. That's what we need to add to both sides. If you add 81 here, you can add 81 there, and we're fine. What you've got now is something on the left side that is easily factorable. It's a perfect square, so I don't need to factor it. The numbers that multiply to 81 and add 18 are 9 and 9. But look, it's x plus 9 times x plus 9, so we'll just write it x plus 9 squared. On the right side, 0 plus 81 is 81. Hey, look! We've got a square root we can solve. This was our last quiz. Square root both sides. X plus 9 equals plus or minus the square root of 81 is 9. Subtract 9 on both sides. Negative 9 plus or minus 9. And then you can actually split that up. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0. Negative 9 minus 9 is negative 18. And those are the solutions to the original quadratic. The next one's going to feel very similar. X squared minus 44x plus something equals 0 plus something. What's the something? Well, let's draw the picture. X, half of negative 44 is negative 22. So what would the corner be? 22 times 22 is 484. That's just a perfect square. If you don't know it, use your calculator. I might have it in my calculator. Let's see. Yep, 22 squared. Okay. So now I know I'm going to add 484 to both sides. 484 to both sides. And now I will factor the left side, but I'm not really going to because I drew the picture. It's x minus 22 squared. And on the right side, 0 plus 484 is 484. Now we solve using radicals. The square root of 44 is 22. Add 22 to both sides. X equals 22 plus 22 is 44. 22 minus 22 is 0. Okay, so the first two are very similar, nothing too fancy. The next one gets a little bit more interesting. We're going to first move everything that's not an x to the other side. That's plus 2. X squared minus 2x, and I'm going to leave myself a blank. 0 plus 2 is 2, and I know I'm going to add something to both sides. So what's the something? Now that I've got it kind of set up, it's half of negative 2, negative 1. X minus 1, x minus 1. What's the corner? 1 times 1 is 1. So add 1 to both sides. Now, on the left side, you will factor, but you don't really need to factor because it's x minus 1 squared. We drew it that way. On the right side, 2 plus 1 makes 3. Cool. Now we can solve by square roots. X minus 1 equals plus or minus radical 3. Add 1 to both sides. 1 plus or minus radical 3. Those are the answers. So now it looks more like what we're used to with the quadratic formula. These all have a leading coefficient of 1, which isn't super useful because most of the quadratics we deal with don't have a leading coefficient of 1. So let's go through this same strategy now, but with a leading coefficient that's not necessarily 1. So let's try one. A is not 1. First thing we'll do is move the 10 to the other side. 2x squared plus 8x equals 10. But if A is not 1, we need to factor that out. So 2 and 8, I'm going to factor out just the 2. I'm not doing anything with the x's. X squared plus 4x. And now I see where I'm going to complete the square, so I'm going to put a blank. And then on the right side, I'm going to say 10 plus something. This is going to be a little weird. Okay. So here we go. We're focusing on just what's in black. I'm ignoring that 2 for this first part. X plus half of 4 is 2. So what am I going to add? 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to add 4. But this is where you've got to be careful. I'm not really adding 4. I'm adding 4 right there, but really, that's, if I were to distribute this out, that's actually an 8. So on the right side, I have to remember, since I factored out a 2, I have to double this and make it 8. 2 times 4 is 8, so really I added 8 to both sides. That's the trickiest part. And now here's where it's going to get weird. On the left side, when you factor, you have x plus 2 squared, that's the same. 10 plus 8 is 18. And now I can solve using square roots. Divide by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Square root both sides. Hey, that's a perfect square. Plus or minus 3. Subtract 2 on both sides. So if you do x equals negative 2 plus 3, you get 1. And negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So 1 and negative 5 are my two zeros. But you have to factor out the GCF before you can do that, or this won't work. Okay, this one's a little fancier. Let's try another just like that. All right, first thing I'll do, subtract 1. 4x squared minus 8x equals negative 1. Now I will factor out just the leading coefficient, the a value. Now I have x squared minus 2x, and I'll leave myself a blank. Negative 1 plus something. So if you are completing the square with what's in red here, you have x minus 1 and x minus 1. The corner would be 1. But it's 1 on this side. It's really, though, 4 times 1, which is 4. So you have to be very careful. Now, on the left side, I have a 4. I have a quadratic that I can factor. All right, we're back. So where was I? I have x squared minus 2x plus 1. The factors of that are x minus 1 squared. And on the right side, negative 1 and 4 make 3. Now you divide both sides by 4. X minus 1 squared equals 3/4. Square root both sides. And you've got, okay, plus or minus. So x minus 1 plus or minus. The square root of 3 is just the square root of 3, but the square root of 4 is 2. So when you square root a fraction, you got to square root the top and the bottom. And now I will add 1 to both sides, and I get 1 plus or minus radical 3 over 2. And we got a bell. We got all sorts of stuff going on today. So gross answers, but exact answers. Let's do another one. So first thing I'll do, add 12 to both sides. Add 12 to both sides. You've got this guy. Now you factor out the a term. X squared minus 10x, and leave yourself a blank. 12 plus, leave yourself a blank. So we're going to do half of 10. Let me draw the picture because I think it helps. It does two things for you. It helps you factor and it helps you figure out the corner. X minus 5, because half of 10 is 5. So what am I adding? 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, 25 goes right there. But really, that's 100. So add 100 to both sides. Because 4 times 25 is 100. Now I've got 4, and when I factor this guy, I get x minus 5 squared. And on the right side, I have 112. So first, divide by 4. X minus 5 squared equals, that's 25 and 3 makes 28. Square root both sides, x minus 5 equals plus or minus radical 28. And then we can say add 5, like that. Now your best answer, since 28 is, oops, it's not 28. 28 is 7 times 4. So really the best answer would be 5 plus or minus 2 radical 7. But I'm okay with this right now. All right, one more, and then we'll call it. First, get a and b on one side, get everything else on the other. 7t squared plus 28t equals negative 56. And now I'm going to factor out my leading coefficient. So factor out the 7, t squared plus 4t, and leave yourself room. So t plus half of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm adding 4, but really I'm adding 7 times 4, which is 28. On the left side, t plus 2 squared, because it's t plus 2 times t plus 2, and negative 56 and negative 28 make negative 28. This one's going to be imaginary. That's okay. T plus 2 squared equals negative 4. Square root both sides. T plus 2 equals plus or minus. The square root of negative 4 is 2i. And then when you subtract 2, t equals negative 2 plus or minus 2i. So we get our complex zeros. Completing the square works regardless, just like quadratic formula. You can solve anything. It doesn't have to be factorable. There's no special requirements. It always works. You just got to get used to factoring out that GCF for the leading coefficient. So make sure you do the practice problems and make sure you smash that like and subscribe.